Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. A couple weeks ago, we did a video game soundtrack week, and we listened to some amazing music written by some fantastic composers, and I really enjoyed that theme. And I was informed that I kind of missed an opportunity to check out. I probably missed a lot of opportunities to check out a lot of awesome music because we only do 5 videos a week. But I was told that Yasunori Nishiki, it's probably just horribly pronounced there, he is the composer for a game called Octopath Traveler. I can't say that I've heard of it before, but I was told that this is one of the better video game soundtracks from the year it came out. And I've been informed that I should definitely be checking out this composer and this soundtrack. So that's what we're going to get into today. The song is Daughter of the Dark God, and it is from the Octopath Traveler album. So let's get into this. Yeah. Yeah, that offbeat hi-hat, so much drive. Yeah. I like how there's some darkness in the lower end, but the two melodies are really coming together for triumph and power, and it's this really cool clash of darkness and strength. Yeah, nice chord climb there. Really playful. The violin and the singer, they're playing almost the same thing, but there's like minor differentiation between them, and it's just really cool. There's some really cool stuff going on in the lower strings, but it's a little muddy. I'm not sure if that's the compression from YouTube or... Alright, it sounds like we've gone back to the beginning now. Yep. Yeah, it does sound like we hit a loop, but there's still a lot of cool stuff going on here. I do not mind listening again. Yeah, there's that chord climb. That is a good chord climb. offbeat hi-hat again. Yeah, so that sounds like the loop. I wonder if there is a what the original intent of the song is. Basically, how it was composed before it was ended up turning into a looping set for whatever situation it fits into. I mean, there's also the possibility that it was created with the loop in mind, and it really is just that minute and a half, minute 45 seconds, moving between those four parts before looping again. It could very well have been composed with that in mind. But often I see, well, sometimes I see that a composer will, create the definitive or traditional, original idea of a song, and that is how they feel it should go in their mind, and then how it's applied to the song is done afterwards. We actually saw this not too long ago. I was informed by a lot of people when we checked out BFG Division by Mick Gordon that the song we listened to was how Mick recorded it, but that's not necessarily how it ends up getting utilized in the game. So that's really interesting. The whole video game music creation is a very interesting topic, and it's this entire separate idea of music creation because of the interactivity of the genre of the medium. Really interesting to write music for because there's so many approaches to go about doing so. Um, but anyways, for that track, there is a lot of cool things happening, even though it is only, like I said, about a 90 to 100-second idea. However, I will say that the loop is very clean. If it wasn't for a couple of auditory landmarks that I picked up on at the beginning, I don't know that I would have assumed that we had hit the loop as quickly as we did. It was a smooth transition back to that. And yeah, that's just the strength of the composer right there. To create, a sort of finite ending, but still have it loopable back to the beginning and not feel like a break. But it still feels like an ending if we were to end it. It's just, yeah, that's a skill right there. Um, but yeah, first of all, it is heavily layered. There is such a strong, rich presence in the chord foundation. Everything under the high strings and the vocalist, and some of the higher horns that pop up. There's so much richness in the chord choices, and it just sounds so. Even if we took out the vocalist, we took out some of the higher end, basically anything that has any sort of melodic line or flourish, we would still end up with a song that sounds great, that would still have that drive and energy and presence, um, just from the sound floor alone, just because it's so well composed. And I think a lot of bands, well, yeah, that's kind of a sweeping generalization. A lot of the music we've checked out so far, they write good enough sound floors. It's usually enough to kind of fill up some space and give whatever the melody line would be, whether that is, a screaming vocal or, a guitar line or a violin or, whatever your lead melody is going to be. Um, and it creates that foundation, it buttresses your leads. And yeah, they do that very well. But if we took out the melodies, how good are these songs? Um, and creating a very strong foundational work is really key to some of these super impactful songs that really hit us, that really drive home, you know, how much we love music as a whole. When we think to our favorite songs, I guarantee a lot of them, unless you're coming at them from a lyrical purpose, maybe they've just hit you at the right time and you could relate to the lyrics themselves. But looking purely at a musical lens, the ones with the really strong foundations are going to be some of the ones that really hit the hardest. They really stick with you. Melodies are there for their catchiness. There's a reason all of us can, remember the Super Mario music. It's a catchy melody. But we don't feel too strong. Most people, I wouldn't say, feel too strongly about it. It is something that they hear and it possibly brings them joy, some nostalgia with remembering that song, or maybe even the 8-bit audio process, the 8-bit sounds that go with it. Um, but I would argue that most people, if they just heard that music, it's not going to elicit a strong non-nostalgic response. But when you listen to the chord changes, the richness of the chords themselves, and how they're picked in the order that they go in, um, and just the width and energy, the song's core identity is present in the foundation of this track, Daughter of the Dark God. And a strong foundation is very key to eliciting a specific emotional response. Yes, your melody lines are probably going to be what ultimately pulls that response out of a listener. But without the strong foundation, the melody is not going to have the context it needs to do that, to elicit that response. So I love so much just hearing how strong of a foundation of a sonic floor that um, Yasunori Nishiki has created here. It is phenomenal. Um, but then on top of that, we have so many layers of flourish, melodic writing, harmonic writing. Like I said, at one point, there's the violin, I think, and the vocalist are sort of like 90% playing the same line, but they have different embellishments and different harmonies. And sometimes one will jump to a note a half beat before the other, and it has like this nice call and response to it, and it's just so well done. Um, and even cooler is sort of the genre textural combination here. Of course, we have the strong classical influence of the strings and the brass. There's this big symphonic element that comes from that. We have the operatic singing, but underneath all that, we have a very rock inspired drum line or drum pattern. Um, and man, I'm trying to. I'm gonna play it back a little bit. Let me see something real quick. So yeah, we don't actually have a guitar in there. I couldn't quite remember, and I did not want to comment on this, kind of with a half knowledge. But it feels like there is some. It's kind of interesting to kind of it blurs the lines. I want to say that there's some rock elements to some of the stuff in the sound floor, but it also just sounds rocky or metally when I think of symphonic metal and how much of that sound actually borrows from classical. And it feels like it's a cyclical thing where I'm not really sure where some of these elements started and where some of them end. Um, so I'm sure that there's been a lot of back and forth inspiration, but at least in my ears, not only do we have a very rock inspired drum pattern, but there feels like rock inspired musical stuff going on in the floor as well. The chords are definitely classical style, but sort of the pattern that they're played in and the way that the lower end instruments like the cellos are playing alongside the chords and what they're doing feels very rocky to me. It feels very rocky to me, and I just it's really interesting because half of my brain is saying this is just straight up classical music, and the other part of my brain's like, nah, man, this is rock with some classical instruments. And the middle of my brain's like, you both are wrong. This is classical with some rock inspiration. So, oh man, it's just so cool to see the two fused so effortlessly. Normally, like when we checked out Nightwish, I can tell that that's a metal band who aims to sound classical. And we have checked out classical music that aims to sound. Actually, we haven't checked out. I am going to have to see if I can dig up. I have heard a song or two classical style music that aims to sound like rock, and I just can't think of it off the top of my head. We have not checked that out on channel though, so I'm gonna have to look into that. But this is just so far in the middle. It has the drive of rock, the sound of classical, the timbres and the chords of classical, some of the instrumental ideas of rock, and it's just so cool to see them blended in a way that I can't really tell the difference between, one inspiration and the other. It's just so seamlessly done. It's beautiful. Um, yeah, so I'm going to have to look into all of this. This Yasunori Nishiki, he has also written music for Princess Connect Redive, Grand Blue Fantasy, the animation, and the Final Fantasy VII remake. So I don't know what any of that means. I was gonna say he's a pretty big name, but Final Fantasy VII remake's the only thing I caught off of any of that. But the fact that he has done the remake to such a widely renowned game written by one of gaming's probably most prolific composer, uh, Uematsu. He definitely didn't get picked for nothing. So I'm interested in more of his works. This song right here is fantastic. I will probably be checking out the rest of this Octopath Traveler soundtracks, hopefully sometime soon, and seeing what else is on here because this is just such a cool mix of ideas, and it's just done so well, just perfect. Everything is just perfectly selected and implemented. It's so good. But those are my thoughts. This is where you guys come in. No, hit me up in the comments if you enjoyed Daughter of the Dark God, written by Yasunori Nishiki. If you didn't enjoy anything that maybe I should know, maybe if you want to give me some context, maybe you've played the game and you know where this song pops up, anything like that would be appreciated. I always like learning more about music, why it's done, and context helps with understanding for sure. Above the comment section is a description box with some links for stuff adjacent to the channel like Discord, Patreon, Twitter, etc. Below that is a like, a subscribe, and a bell to ring. All three of those things help out the channel immensely. I'll be back tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC to finish out this week of my personal selections. And then we'll be doing some special selection across the weekend, and we'll be moving into next week's melancholy theme. So definitely got some good stuff ahead of us I'm excited about. Until next time, remember to be critical and not cynical about the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.